Hey guys, welcome back for another Baker Built Sexy Time Tip of the Week. This video is part of a series, a special series, because in this series I'm actually going to be focusing on mobility that preps you for specific lifts. And we're going to be focusing on the big lifts. We're going to be focusing on the back squat, the deadlift, the press, the barbell row, and then bench press. So all the big lifts that may show up in your programming at some point in some fashion. We're going to be talking about these lifts as if they had just a barbell is what you would be using, but you can obviously apply this to the same lift variations with dumbbells, kettlebells, anything else you might be using, sandbags. There's a lot of stuff you can do with these type of movements, and the mobility I'm going to show you is good for all those different types of equipment because the movements are all very much the same in a lot of ways. So we're going to start with this video in which I'm going to be talking about the back squat. And the way you'll use this video is either as a warm-up or a cool down for your workout. So say it's a Monday, I'm doing back squat sets as my workout or part of my workout. I would use this mobility routine either to warm up or cool down or both. Either if you do it in the beginning or the end, it's going to have a different effect. The movements, the mobility stuff I'm going to show you will be the same either way, but if you do it at the beginning of a workout, you're going to do it in the sense that you're prepping your body for the movement itself. You're loosening up the connective tissue. You're prepping the muscles. You'll combine this with warm-up sets, building weight as you get into your back squats. And it's going to help to loosen you up and get you ready for stuff. If you do this as a cool down, the benefit there is going to be that your body's warm, the muscles are already pretty pliable, and doing this sort of mobility at the end is going to help increase that mobility and make a bigger range of motion overall for your body in general. So that's a good thing. I say do both. Do it at the beginning and at the end. But if you can only pick one for a time constraint or something like that, then make sure you do it though. That's the most important thing. The videos, the routine is probably anywhere between 5 and 10 minutes depending upon how thorough you're being. If you're being really thorough, you're doing 2+ minutes on each region and kind of working through each area. If you're being a little shorter with it, you're maybe doing 30 seconds or a minute on each one, you're pressed for time. That's cool, you're still getting it in. That's what's important, making it part of your regular routine. So like I said, this video is about the back squat. Let's get started. The first thing that's pretty obvious with the back squat is addressing mobility in the legs. Mostly I'm going to talk about the quads and prepping the area around the knee joints as well for this. And you can either use a lacrosse ball or a foam roller. I'm going to talk about different variations you can do with both, but let's start with the foam roller. The obvious one is a classic foam rolling of the quads. So you just get on the foam roller, let your body weight kind of do the work for you. You can see my feet are up off the ground. I'm just slowly rolling forward and back. I'm going from the top of my hip down to just above the knee. Don't roll over the kneecaps or over the knee joints themselves. You never want to do that. You could really injure yourself, but you want to roll just up to them and then back up to the top. You also want to make sure you're changing up your angles. So I'm going to roll to the outside. I can even turn the foam roller parallel to me and throw my knee up and roll the inside of my quad and the inner thigh muscles. That's always a good one. A lot of people need to do that and we don't. So I'd spend a little bit of time working both of the legs. If I wanted to get a little more specific around my knees, say when I squat I tend to feel a little bit of tension or discomfort here in my patellar tendon right below the kneecap. What I'm going to do is take my lacrosse ball and I'm going to work 3 different areas. I'm going to work the inside, right up to the up and out of the knee. I'm going to work right above the kneecap, and then I'm going to work right up to the upper outside of the knee as well, of the kneecap right there. I'm going to do each position, like I said, if you're doing it thoroughly, 2 minutes per side, that's going to be 6 minutes per knee. That's 12 minutes, maybe a bit much for a warm-up, but in a cool down, it's definitely a good idea. Maybe if you're warming up just a minute or 30 seconds, it ultimately depends on how bad your situation is. If you get a lot of tension, a lot of tightness in here, you probably need 12 minutes of this beforehand, but you have to be the judge there. Anything is better than nothing. Spending some time mashing these tissues right in here is definitely going to help out a lot. You know, you just kind of put the ball on the ground right there and just let your body weight do the work. You know, and you can move the knee itself or move the leg, working the knee joint once you find a really tense spot where you can just roll around on it. You can even, if it's really sensitive, just the pressure of my knee on the ball could be enough. Again, it takes time and familiarity to really figure out what works best. The other thing is we can talk about is the back of the knees. Can have a bit of a play on your squat in warming up the calves and the hamstrings. Now, in the back of the knee, the calves and hamstrings overlap, so you do get some muscle back in there. You'll note, remember what I said earlier, you never roll over the knee caps, you never roll over the knee joints on the inside and outside, but you can foam roll the back. That's going to be fairly okay, because the joint's meant to bend this way, that's its natural articulation. And you've got some muscle that overlaps back there that can get really tight. So spend a little bit of time doing that, because what that leads into is improving the mobility in your ankles and your calves in preparation for the back squat. Because if you recall, once we squat, when I come down to that squat, my ankles need to be able to flex. They need to be able to close and come forward. Tight calves, tight calves, tight Achilles tendon, that's going to limit that ability. It's also going to lead to tight tissues in the foot too. So the way you can do that is to take your lacrosse ball and kind of work the tissues of the foot. You know, I might do this normally standing up, but for the sake of the video, I want you to be able to see me. So I'm going to put my foot on the ball, roll it around, get into those little different areas right in there, the really meaty parts, down to the back of the heel there. Kind of get the heel cords of the Achilles tendon there. And then I can come up to the foam roller to really address the calves. With the calves, you can always throw a leg on top to add a little more pressure. If you don't need it, cool. Just spend some time working these tissues here. You know, you can pin it if you find that sensitive area and just work the ankle itself. It's always a good idea to work the pressure trigger points with some pressure through the range of motion for the joint you want to pay attention to. So that's a great way to prep your lower extremities, really get the ankles warmed up for the back squat. You can also go into a bit of a static stretch. This is one I really like. It kind of really gets in deep. You know, you kind of set yourself up so that your knee is right over your foot, your chest is right over the knee, and you just give it a little bit of pressure. So you can see my heel is still on the ground, and I'm just leaning forward enough that I start to feel a stretch in through here. I probably might do this for 30 seconds or a minute if I'm pressed for time, but up to 2 minutes if I've got a bit of time on my hands and I can afford to do this. That's really going to help prep your ankles to be in this position during your back squat. The last piece I want to address with the back squat is your upper back. It's really key when you're squatting that you maintain, an upright position with your back here. You want to keep the back flat. You want to feel some tension back here in the muscles, and because you want to be able to support that weight. If you're not tight here, you're just going to collapse, and that's going to wind up either injuring you or just preventing you from really getting the most out of a back squat in your workouts. So I want you to foam roll the upper back. Most of us, because this is just life, we sit a lot at a desk, at a computer in this position here. So to be, in an upright posture like this can be tough for people just on its own, let alone throwing on a barbell with 200 pounds on it. That's an entirely different beast. So what you want to do to prep, get on the foam roller, and the area you are working is from the bottom of your rib cage up to the traps of the shoulders right there. You're not going to go below the rib cage with this foam rolling technique. You're going to stay just to the rib cage itself and start to roll. Couple of variations here. You can support your head with your arms. I like to do that sometimes, especially if I'm feeling pretty tired. You can also hug yourself. What that does is it pulls the shoulder blades apart, opens up a little more muscle tissue that you can get into. some tissues that may not necessarily get any love from the foam roller or the lacrosse ball normally. You can roll to the side. Favorite of mine here is kind of getting a bit of the lats in there, a little under the shoulder. We're already here. You might as well sweep out the corners as well as sweep the room, that kind of thing. And just spending a few minutes doing this. You can also, instead of rolling up and down, you can simply find an area where you feel a lot of tension and some tightness, and then just work on extension, either bringing the shoulders down, or what I might do is raise my hips up, find that area where there's some tension, and then drop the hips down or drop the hips and the shoulders. We're working on getting the body back into what it should be a natural position for it, but for most of us, we have limited range of mobility, and so we don't have access to that. And this is going to help bring that back to you. It's also going to, make you stand upright more. You're going to have better posture. You'll look more powerful and present, and people will admire that. That's a good thing. So, use that routine either before or after back squats, guys. I guarantee you'll see a difference in how you lift from that point. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email, and I will talk to you guys later.